All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on with us today, John, to pay tribute to the loss of the great Bob Nalbandian. But yeah, before we do that, I definitely want to talk a little bit about the All for One 40th anniversary tour that you got coming up, starting in March. You got 10 dates, I believe, in the UK.
Yeah, and up to 12, which isn't bad for the UK. Okay. I mean, back in the day, I think we did 27 once, and there's not many people doing that in the UK these days. You know, you could be, you know, playing in one town and then playing 10 miles away in another town. That doesn't happen. But 12 is good, and you know, very positive reaction. We're looking forward to doing the All for One album in its entirety, and that'll be a lot of fun because there's a couple of songs that were never played live.
Right.
So we'll put them all together, and
so
we'll be driving Mike out of his tree, learning them all before we go.
So are those now? In order for people to know what songs you're going to be playing, they have to go to the show to obviously find that out. Correct?
Well, it's the album plus assorted odds and sods. We'll be doing at least a couple from Metal City, and I mean we just did, or was it Wiped Out in the States last year, which was a blast and very unusual because you basically, you do your set. And there's always like that 5 or 6 songs that are kind of perennial, and maybe eventually you'll take 1 or 2 out and move them around. But there's always going to be that cornerstone of the set. And pretty much for this, it was like, nah, it's gone. Oh, okay. So your whole thing, your pacing pretty much is out the window. And luckily for us, this is where back in the day, especially when you paced an album, I mean, we still do. And that serves you for doing that. If you're doing the album and it's in the correct order, it's paced. And so that was half the battle.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, speaking of All for One and, and losses, obviously, the record was out 40 years ago on the legendary Megaforce Records. And unfortunately, we've seen, 2 unfortunate passings of the label's owners, Marsha and Jonny and Zazula, over the last few years. Obviously, 2 really vital purveyors of metal music to the masses for decades. And then you guys, of course, Raven, you guys recently played the Celebration show this past fall with Metallica. Of course, sort of a reunion of sorts, I guess, for the legendary Kill 'Em All for One tour. So tell us a bit about, I guess, how that show went and how really commemorative of an event that really must have been.
It went really well. It was the second, apart from one more show, last show of the tour that we'd done, but which was all, pure chance the way it worked out. It worked out great. We were recording back in June, July, and we're in Los Angeles at Mike's place, at Mike's studio. And the idea came up to hit up the Metallica guys and say, hey, do you want to sit down and talk about the anniversary, which is coming up this year now, And James was very receptive and said, yeah, I want to do this. Definitely want to do this. So we went up, we went into Metallica HQ, set up a table, cameras, and sat down with James for like an hour, shooting the breeze about all things anniversary related, and it was really, really great. He's to see those guys and know what they've went through, know where they are, and to know that they pretty much have their feet firmly planted on the ground. It's a great thing. It's very inspirational. So at the end of that, I just said, hey, by the way, if you ever have any opening slots, there's this little band from Newcastle who'll be very interested. And he laughed and he said, where do you guys live now? I says, well, half the time I'm in Florida and my brother lives in Florida. He goes, coincidentally, we have a show coming up in Florida that hasn't been advertised yet. Wow. We'll let you know. Nice. 2 weeks later, boom, you're in.
Wow.
And then we found out it was going to be done as an anniversary. Now, I think they've done a show in this venue for a couple of years, like on a charity basis. And this was as well. I mean, I think the merch and everything went to charity. But they decided to make it for John and Marsha, which was
Sure.
obviously a brilliant idea. And we were very happy to be in on it. And it was just like, you know, the stars aligned and all this worked out. It all came together. And it's a great venue, the Hard Rock Casino. It's like maybe 7,000 people. This giant, you know, like 4 or 5 balcony thing. Absolutely huge stage. They treated us like gold. The crew were incredible. Everyone there was incredible. And, you know, John and Marsha's daughters were there.
Wow.
You know, Ricky, Danielle, and Blair, and it was wonderful having them there. And it was just a great celebration. I mean, when John passed, that was another huge shock, because literally like a week or two beforehand, I'd been talking to him on the phone. He was all, you know, what you guys doing next? I love Metal City. It's the best thing you guys have ever done, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just really happy that it was 2019. We got to play Orlando and they came down and we had dinner. And it was really good to, you know, square the circle on that. At least we got to see them before both of them did pass. You know?
Sure.
But it just seems like, you know, and this will lead into Bob as well. It just seems like all of you guys that were there at the beginning, the Zazulas and you guys and Metallica and Rob Quintana and, you know, the whole collection of people, it was such a family that really never, despite whatever levels of fame, fortune, whatever you guys all had, y'all still stayed kind of together as a metal family, man, which is a really impressive thing all these years later, no?
Oh, absolutely. You know, that there's very few, you know, like geographical places where they'll do that. San Francisco is one. All those people, you know, like you mentioned, Ron and then Bob would be there. And there's people I knew that lived in Chicago, moved out that way. And it's a real family there. All those, the Bay Area band thing, it really is. It's a pretty special thing. But in the wider context, yes, everyone that was in at the beginning, whether it was people starting fanzines in the States, like Bob Muldowney on the East Coast, people doing fanzines and Krang and all that in the UK, Metal Mike and Andre doing the thing with Aardschok in Holland. You know, the guys doing this in Germany. I mean, forget about it. Everyone had a part to play. Everyone was, you know, the reason why this music took off and got popular, and they, you know, they shouted it from the hilltops, you know.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt. So, John, I mean, you know, the last time, excuse me, that I had a pleasure really of seeing you guys live was with Bob Nalbandian here in San Francisco. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. And of course, as you know, you've been kind of echoing here, you know, Bob's been a major champion of the band, especially here on the West Coast, obviously. Even, I believe, even right before, you know, All for One came out. And I know he also continued champion you guys over the years, as I'm going to bring up something right here as evidence too, is as the, you know, one of his original Headbanger fanzines. And obviously, you guys are right down there as one of the features. So I mean, tell us about, I guess, your first time coming into contact with Bob and sort of your earliest memory of him when he was featuring, you know, Raven in the Headbanger, and when all these fanzines started to kind of, you know, come up and really help all these bands get noticed.
Literally cannot remember the first time I met Bob. I don't know if we met him on Kill 'Em All, you know, at the Kill 'Em All for One tour. There's so many people we ran into. And to be honest, a lot of those people I know from meeting them later on, you know.
Okay.
People like, I mean, I vaguely remember, I remembered Ron Quintana because we'd met him in Belgium. He'd come over to Belgium.
Okay.
So Bob, I'm not sure with that, but I definitely remember Bob, like in the 2000s when we started, you know, after Mark got over his accident, we started touring again. and he'd always come up and want to do an interview and what you guys doing, and I love this and blah blah blah. He was just like I said, just full of positive energy, and always had a laugh and a smile on his face. You know, I think we've seen him when we played the DNA Lounge with Diamond Head. And I believe it was the Parkside is where you saw us.
Yes, I see it. The Parkside. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure playing that area because, like I say, there's people who've known for 30, 40 years. It's crazy.
Wow.
Sure. You know, John, one of the things that both Matt and I, we're really good friends with Bob, obviously, and we've known him for a long time, and yet every single person that we've talked to, whether it's friends of his, personal friends of his, or rock friends of his, or guys that kind of blur that line like yourself, no matter who it is, everybody has the same story. He was in it because he loved the music. He wasn't looking for anything. He wasn't looking to be famous. He didn't want his name in the credits, or he didn't want attention. That's rare. And I know you know that. I'm sure you've run into many a hanger-on in the years that you've been doing it. And then you got a guy like this that selflessly gave pretty much his whole life too.
Wanted to promote the music, wanted to tell the story. And I know he did his movies, were very well received. The LA metal stuff and all that, brilliant.
Yeah.
It's just a horrible shock. And this sucks. This is the one part that really sucks about getting older, is that you're reminded of your own mortality, and because of that, you got to do the right thing. Whatever you're doing, max it out, make the most of it, treasure your friends and your family, and just bear that horrible crap in mind. Don't let it rule your life, as it obviously didn't rule Bob's. He soldiered on and did everything he could until the battle was over. But it's take it as inspiration. He lived his life for the better, for good.
Exactly. And that's what we've been trying to convince everybody of as well, is that, there's so few people that truly can say, this is what I wanted to do and I did it. And, I think that is kind of the positive ring that we could, not that there's anything really positive about Bob passing, but if you were to ask Bob today, did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish? I think he would have said yes. I think he obviously I know he was happy with the documentaries, and I know he was happy with his relationships that he had with bands, not because they were famous bands or whatever, but because they were his friends and he wanted to be in that circle. And he really was.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't like a glory seeker hanging on type of thing. It was he genuinely liked the music, and he made friendships because luckily enough in this business, although some people may tell you different, the great majority of people in the bands and in the business are good people.
True.
There's very few out and out jerks. Very few,
Right.
And we could probably pick them out of a hat very quickly.
Well, John, no, I appreciate you coming on and saying some words about Bob. I guess obviously he was a huge fan of the band right to the end. And just before we wrap it up here, I mean, just if you have any last words you want to say to Bob or about him, please do so. As like I said, I know Raven was always a band, and you especially as an individual, as someone he definitely held dear to his heart. Huge. And always talked about what a great guy you were, and just not just you said the band musically, but just you guys as people as well.
Yeah, I'm upset that I don't get to play our new album to him and get his reaction on that. So. I guess I'll have to play it real loud for him to hear it now. Get your headphones on, Bob. It's coming. It's coming real loud. No, we
Very
love
good.
you. We miss you, man. That's a shame. It's a great shame. Yeah.